And welcome to the Inside Connection podcast powered by MediConnect Insurance. I am Sean Horn. He is Lance O'Brien, and it's a big weekend.
Yeah.
Obvious reasons. Steelers training camp is open, and it's usually a big weekend here in southwestern Pennsylvania. And I got to tell you, man, personally speaking, expectations are kind of high. I'm very excited going into this year.
Yeah. So as you know, I shouldn't admit this. I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, but boo hiss. But I root very hard for the Steelers as
Yeah,
long
you're a
as they're
season
not
ticket
playing.
holder.
I am with my daughter. It was one of her big dreams growing up here in Pittsburgh. I have two prayers if I can for the season. Right.
Okay.
One, Pickett takes a step forward.
It's a big one.
If he does, I think it's going to be huge. And two, no injuries. They got hurt last year with TJ. That really affected the defense for a little while. I just think that the pieces are there. If they can get the breaks, I like their potential this year.
Another thing that I really do like too, though, is there's been a really quick influx of youth onto the team, right? I mean, they hit a home run with the draft.
Yep.
I don't care what you say. They did phenomenally well. But then to interject some of this youthful talent around them, but also get those leadership pieces like Patrick Peterson and Allen Robinson and the offensive lineman. I don't want to butcher his name, but the offensive lineman from Philly. I think they're going to have leadership in the right places. And like you said, if Pickett takes that step, I love how they're flying under the radar. I'll just say that.
Yeah, everybody's kind of picking everybody else in their division. It seems like the Steelers are fourth, and I have a hard time believing that. I am looking forward to some George Pickens pretty crazy catches this year. Guy's got some incredible catch radius, so that's going to be fun.
It will be. And look, we could do this all day long.
Yep.
Again, I'm super.
Do we have to talk about Medicare? Is that mandatory?
No, we do. We do. Until we start getting money from the sports teams, we do have to talk about Medicare.
Fair enough.
So, but this is a big weekend to talk about Medicare as well, because some of the things that we do face, especially when we're hosting our new to Medicare seminars, some of the things we do face is, why does this have to be so difficult?
Yeah, there's so much, and this is probably going to be a longer answer than maybe necessary, but I think it's really important. I think we see so many people every week and month, right, that are new to Medicare, come to all of our events, seminars, everything, and it's all the, why is this so difficult? I don't understand this. Why do they make it so complicated? And I think there's a few things that go into it. First one is they're not generally asked to do this.
That's a good point.
Right. So if they're employed, they have insurance through their company, basically, they're not sorting through all the options that are out there. They're not educating themselves on all the changes that are happening in the group health space. They're not doing any of that. All they're doing is they're getting a piece of paper in front of them, 3 to 5 plans, and they're looking at the one that fits their budget, that has the benefits, and they go, I'll take that one, right? The Medicare process is much more involved than that, right? Because nobody's generally doing that homework for you if you do it on your own.
And I will also add to that, that's a great point, but generally, not for everybody, but generally when you're younger, you're healthier.
Correct.
So you're usually just going after, what's the lowest premium? I hardly ever go to the doctor or the hospital. What premium can I afford? And let's just get this done and over with. I'm living proof of it right now that when you do go to use your health care, sometimes you're kind of bit in the rear by some of the expenses that do pop up when that does happen. So it's not always about just chasing that low premium. You got to dig into the benefits. And again, that's an area where if you're not an expert, it gets very boring. Let's push it off and move on with our life, right?
Yeah, I actually think that's a great point. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because when we are younger, it's like, it's the primary care. It's the yearly physical. Maybe if we have one issue, we might get blood work once a year, but that's it. So there's not really a lot of need to put a lot of thought into it. Obviously, as we get older, that changes. So I think the one reason why it's really daunting is there's just not a lot of experience with it, either based on situation with the type of coverage we have, or situation with our own health, right?
Correct.
Beyond that, I think there's 3 real big barriers that people face,
Okay.
right? The first one is overwhelming information from the industry. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically at that point in time, it's just an influx of information from carriers, from even brokers, right? Commercials from marketing firms. They're from the industry itself. there's just an overwhelming amount of information from a ton of different avenues, right? It used to be if somebody was trying to reach you to talk to you about Medicare, it was generally on the phone, in the mail, or over the phone.
Correct.
Now it's social media, it's the TV screen, it's pretty much everything you can imagine. So I think that's one of the challenging things is all this information from the industry. Second thing is all the opinions from our family or friends, right? So you've got all these people here giving you all this information, but you don't really know them, right? They're doing their job. Then you've got all these people over here who you do know them, and you're looking for their opinion and their insight, but what necessarily works for them doesn't work for you. And then this is what I think ties it all together. Who do I trust?
It's a big one.
Right. So if I've got all the industry and the carriers and the marketers, and then I've got all the opinions and they're different, right? And everyone's giving me their interpretation of what's correct information, etc. And I've got these two things. What ends up happening is what I'll just call, for lack of a better way of stating it, a big old pot of confusion.
This is true.
Right. So then you've got this pot that's just being stirred, and you're really looking for someone that you can trust to get you the information that's going to get the process that you're not super familiar with easy to do.
So let's break that down by category.
Sure.
The insurance companies and the brokers and whoever it may be mailing out information, pummeling you with phone calls or emails. Why is that a little bit of a difficult situation to try to navigate? I'm going to lead it off first by saying that, when you get those mail pieces and so forth, they're sales pieces, they're marketing material.
Absolutely.
Meaning they're going to highlight the good parts of why you should pay attention to that plan. But they're not going over every detail and some of the negative aspects, because we've said it many times, there is no such thing as a perfect Medicare plan for everybody.
Right. Yeah, I think the challenge with that too is much of that marketing that's coming out is solely around one type of private insurance. There's not one type of private insurance when it comes to Medicare, right? There's multiple private insurances you can choose from, but you're only getting marketing materials on one of them.
Correct.
So one half of the pie is being shut out, and then it doesn't do what I think for most people is a big challenging part of the process. It doesn't compare Medicare to the coverage they have right now. Right. So, yeah, I'm getting all this information on the plans are available, but how do I even know I got to go to Medicare? Right. What if I want to keep working? What if I have coverage? Now, again, we run into people all the time. They keep working, but they still go to Medicare because the coverage is better. So it's just the overwhelming amount of information that's isolated to one type of private insurance. That's a problem.
That's a big deal. And then when you talk about the other aspect, all the friends and family, because, when you have somebody that you're close with that has gone through the process before you kind of ping their tower a little bit of, hey, what am I going to be in store for here? And inevitably, if that person that you lean on is happy with their coverage, they're going to try to push you that way to get you to contact their person to help them manage all of that. And you have one different option to take a look at, right? When there are over 60 here in Pittsburgh on the Medicare Advantage side, not to mention the 10 different Medicare supplement options from a plan type perspective. So you get to hear about one.
Right.
And I think a big issue there, Lance, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a big issue there, you're not on the same prescriptions generally as that person you're talking to. You may have a different budget than that person that you're relying upon for that information. You also may have a different doctor network or travel habits or retirement goals. All of these things play an important role when it comes to selecting your coverage.
It does. Those variables make a huge difference. And I'll add this. My thing in the opinions that you're going to get is, I would say, consider the source, right? And that's actually two layered. What I mean by that is you're going to have the family or friend, to your point, that might be happy or not happy with their plan, and they're trying to give you information on how they think it works. But where did they get their information from? Right? Did they actually was their source of information? Did they call a carrier directly? That could be a big problem, right? Did they do research on their own?
That could be a problem.
That could be a big problem. Did they solely rely on the opinions of other people, or did they go to a trusted independent source? So you've got the source, that's the first layer, but what's the source behind that? Did they get someone that even gave them the accurate information? Because again, we'll talk to people all the time that come in here and they've got mistakes or issues. Drugs aren't covered well, doctors aren't in network, now they have a penalty, and a lot of it has to do with that the initial source they had wasn't good. So you've got all this industry information, you've got all these varying opinions, and it really is difficult to figure out, who do I trust in this scenario?
Well, thankfully, you have MediConnect you can trust. That is why we are the top rated Medicare advisory firm in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of work that goes into those words of top rated in Medicare experts. And we really pride ourselves on that in particular, especially where we always talk about making Medicare simple, having it easy to understand so you can move forward with your plan choice with extreme confidence. And I like to use this word. We want you to thrive with your coverage when it comes to Medicare.
Absolutely. So I'll just say a couple things here as we're coming to the end of this first segment. Number one, if you decide to meet with someone, which I think you should,
Yes.
We'd love it to be us, but you should meet with someone, right? If the person you meet with says, I have the best plan for you, stand up, push your chair out, and walk out of the room. Honestly, right? Because it's not that simple. And then this kind of piggybacks off of it. If you sit down with someone and they're trying to give you a solution before they understand your situation, push your chair out, stand up, and walk. I mean, to me, the biggest thing is, I want to get to know your situation. Our advisors want to get to know your situation. Once we understand what your desires are from a working standpoint, network standpoint, budget standpoint, health issues, all of those things, then we'll start walking into the how do I sign up for Medicare, the complicated education and making it really simple, right? And then we'll get into specific plans. We kind of start at the top of a funnel and work our way down. But again, can't give a solution until you understand the situation.
And I always say the Medicare is as individualized and as unique as your fingerprint, which quite honestly, I mean, we're talking Medicare here again. Again, I would rather go back and talk about the Steelers or the Penguins or whatever else. We're talking Medicare. It's not that enthralling and alluring of a subject matter. But what keeps it interesting for us is helping people on an individual basis maximize this opportunity. So if you need that help at any time, you have any questions related to Medicare, 888-818-6334 or MediconnectInsurance.com.
Medicare is confusing and a little scary.
Plan B, Part B,
HMO, PPO. I feel lost.
Whether you're just starting Medicare or currently on Medicare, you're faced with critical decisions each year. Questions like, do I need a Medicare plan? Is my current coverage still my best option? Will I still be able to see my doctors? I'm Brian Breisinger with MediConnect, the area's premier independent healthcare advisory firm. We can help avoid costly pitfalls today and in the future. We can meet with you in person or over the phone. Choose an expert in your community.
MediConnect walked us through everything.
Best of all, it didn't cost us anything.
That's right. Our licensed experts can offer unbiased advice on all of your healthcare options at no cost to you.
MediConnect is a great organization.
MediConnect, bridging the healthcare gap. For no-cost advice, call 888-818-MEDI or go to MediConnectInsurance.com.
And welcome back to the Inside Connection podcast powered by MediConnect Insurance. Once again, I am Sean. He is Lance. And, we opened up the show talking about the Steelers, which I could go right back into again. But we also talked a lot about why does Medicare have to be so hard? We hear it time and time again. When we have our seminars, you see the glossed over eyes where they're just like, here we go. And I think a little bit of that is because some of them can't believe that they made it to this point in their life.
So fast.
Yeah, and they're like, I'm old now, which is not the truth. You're not. I mean,
No.
Which we could talk about in later episodes. That's not the situation at all. But you're eligible now. But when that comes, it's just a barrage of information. And we want to start off this segment by talking about the kitchen table.
Yeah, so you've got the industry hitting you, you've got opinion, and you're looking for somebody to trust, right? And again, the kitchen table's a euphemism because we do a lot of appointments with people over the phone. We'll do them via Zoom. They'll come to our office. But the kitchen table, I think, is a good place to start. So we get there, we see all this Medicare information a lot of times, right? A stack of this. And at some point in time in that conversation, we know it's going to go to, do I need this? Do I need this?
Yep.
Do I need this? But I want to go back as we start the segment to where we ended the last one, which is before we give a solution, we want to understand the situation. And I think it's really important for us to build that out. What does that mean? So like when we sit down with someone, Sean, and the questions vary in order and things like that. But I know for me, just drawing on my own experience, when are you turning 65, right? Because that matters, right? Most people don't realize that the Medicare starts the first day of the month, right, of their birthday, right? So if they're born August 15th, it's August 1st. They also don't realize is if they're August 1st, it's July 1st, right? So there's the questions we're asking, we're already trying to narrow down an understanding of their situation. Do you plan on keep working, right? And if you're going to work, do you have coverage? Is that coverage in HSA, right? Is that coverage, are you employed by a company that has more than 20 people, right? Are you already taking your Social Security right now, right? Why do those questions matter, Sean?
Well, it kind of helps frame in exactly the scenario you're in so that we can help you navigate. Number one, do you even need Medicare, right?
Absolutely.
If you do need Medicare, let us help you understand it a little bit better. And then after that, we always follow up with, once you have a good understanding, let's determine if you want our help.
Right.
Because as great as we think we are, we know that there are some people that like to go straight to the source or the carrier, whatever it might be. But you miss the independent viewpoint when you do that, which I do want to circle back on here in a moment. But there's so many different elements. Here's another one. Do you work with the post office?
Yeah.
Which is a brand new rule over the last year and a half.
Yep.
And that's the crazy part about Medicare that really it goes under the radar because it's not talked about a lot. But these rule changes happen all the time.
Yes.
And a lot of times that happens in the middle of the year. When, again, nobody is really paying attention to Medicare in the middle of the year. It's usually the end of the year is when everybody really gets involved. So we, as a company, really want to try to make sure that as information happens, it is released right to your ears so that you're not, you're not unprepared or you're met with a mistake as a result of not paying attention to the news on your own.
Yeah, and the truth of it is usually within 6 to 8, 10 questions at the most, 5 minutes, really good understanding of what we need to hit in the education process. If you're not planning on working, then we know that you are going to need Medicare unless your spouse can provide the coverage,
Yep.
right? If you're in an HSA, that may affect whether you should sign up for Medicare at all, right? If you have more than 20 or less than 20 employees, you're going to be required to get Part B even if you work or don't work, right? So all of those questions have meaning to kind of get through the overwhelming scenarios that are facing people to get to then where we understand that, okay, let's talk about Medicare. Let's talk about enrollment periods. Let's make sense of those. There's 4 of them, right? Let's make sense of Part A and B. All right, now that you understand what that costs and what it covers, now let's make sense of the private insurance options. It's not just everything sitting on your table right now, right? There's another option, that you want to consider. Maybe you're a veteran. Maybe you have been a school teacher. Maybe you are a federal employee, right? Then what about prescription drugs? Like all of that, understanding the situation helps guide. It's kind of like this. I think of it this way, Sean. I throw a stick in the river. What happens?
Goes downstream.
The river just carries it along and keeps it in the banks. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get people in the banks, carried along simply, easily to the destination where they want to get.
And what's unique, and I'm not sure if all of our audience will pick up on it, is the fact that every single one of those questions you just asked really does play a role. I mean, even the one I brought up about are you a postal worker? That has a bearing on whether you need Medicare or not. And what's crazy is it wasn't that long ago, Lance, where it was just a universal understanding of you turn 65, you need Medicare.
Exactly.
It has changed drastically in the last 5 years. So your individual situation will dictate a lot of whether you even need to get involved in the program. And if you do, again, how to best thrive moving forward.
And I think that's one of the unique advantages. I mean, we're meeting with about 5,000 people, a little shy of that, but about 5,000 people a year at this point in time. What does that also do? It means we're being exposed to basically every scenario out there under the sun. I mean,
sure.
heck, we helped someone earlier this year that works in Sweden was trying to figure out if the Swedish health plan was good enough for him or if he needed Medicare. I mean, we've literally seen it all, right? And listen, when I bring the oven repair guy came to my house today, right? If I DIY'd it, if I watched enough videos, I might have been able to figure it out, right? I want the person who's done it 100 times, 1,000 times, 5,000 times. I want that person coming because they don't have to step back. They just do, right? And I think that's one of the big advantages of working with MediConnect is we've seen so much that it's not, I'm not sure what to do here. It's let's guide them to the direction so they can make a great decision.
Yeah, I mean, you made a great illustration, and take it a step further. Your mechanic, your financial planner, your tax advisor, or accountant. Like these people, you take a problem or a situation to them, drop off your information or your car, walk away, and go back when it's all done, right? And then you just have them manage it periodically as needed. The same thing when it comes to Medicare, which is what we aspire to be for this community, is to really make sure that as needs arise, if you need to get onto Medicare, if you need to push it off, what game plan do you need to involve? How can we map this all out for you? If you're having an issue with your coverage currently, how can we get in contact with the people who can help alleviate a lot of these problems for you? That's really what the purpose of MediConnect really is striving to be, is the industry leader, the voice of our industry, to make sure the consumer benefits mostly.
I love the tax accountant actually example as well that you just brought up, because back in the day when I used to do my 1040 and that's all I had to do, my EZ, whatever, I could do my taxes. Right? Simple. You start adding other schedules, other forms, and then let's think about this part of it. Even if I was able to do all of that, I'm not sure that I would have taken advantage of every opportunity that was allowable for me to maximize my return. Could you sign up for a plan on your own and get onto Medicare?
Yes.
You can. But I think that's the point. Are you really going to maximize getting all the benefits, making sure you're taking advantage of everything that is allowable to you? I would say that's not going to happen if you try to do it on your own.
That's a very good point. So as we look forward to wrapping up the show here in a few moments, I'm going to do want to talk a little bit about the marketing aspect of Medicare, because I think that our consumers and our audience really, this is a big trouble spot. And a matter of fact, the government has even gotten involved recently to try to help clean things up for the consumer. So, you talk about the TV commercials and the Google searches, and you see Medicare, so you click a button or you dial a phone number. We really want to protect you against when you happen to click and enter your information or make that phone call, it goes to a third-party vendor.
Yep.
Which means your data is getting sold off to another entity to then call you around the clock to try to make contact with you to help you with your Medicare. So, what does that mean? It means that you are putting yourself at risk from a data perspective of being inundated yourself by not, contacting immediately with the experts who do this day in and day out to help so many thousands of people in southwestern Pennsylvania. So don't leave yourself exposed is really what it comes down to. I mean, there's a lot of good information out there, but you talk about all the time, Lance, there's a lot of misinformation as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is you do it the way you just explained, you're getting a marketing agency.
Yes.
You're opening Pandora's box. They're not Medicare people, and frankly, most of them are not local Medicare people. They're sitting somewhere in a call center or in an office in another state. They work only with national carriers. They don't understand anything about UPMC, Allegheny Health Network, Highmark, none of that stuff, right? Where when you call MediConnect, we're not a marketing organization. We're Medicare experts. We focus on educating people on Medicare. That's why we do this podcast. It's why we do all the YouTube, the Facebook. It's why we're doing over 100 seminars every single year. It's why we have the radio, right? Everything, right? It's to make sure that we're getting the information out there on what Medicare actually is for the local community and surrounding states.
I'll take a step further. I have a friend, Sandy, who's a client of mine, her and her husband, longtime clients of mine, that, they saw the Joe Namath commercial, so they had a call.
Yeah.
Football season, I
Yeah.
had to bring it up again. So, and I know you're
And
shaking your
Joe's
head.
from, and Joe's from here, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So they see the commercial, to make the call. This lady has some health needs, in contact with somebody in a different state who puts her on a drug-only plan. Not only did he put her on a drug-only plan, meaning she had no medical coverage other than original Medicare A and B, put her on a drug plan, he didn't even look up her prescriptions
oh gosh.
to determine what they would all cost. So I did it for them when I went back out and visited to kind of correct the issue. And the medication that she was on specifically that she was most concerned about would have cost her per month $270 more than the plan that she was already on that I had to re-enroll her on.
Right.
So again, we see the popular faces and the celebrities of yesteryear who are, getting a little bit more active, and as a result, the government is also getting a little more active with the marketing aspect of Medicare. But really, it's a shame it has to even get to this point. And it just goes to show how much money there is in Medicare, unfortunately. And when there is, everybody wants to get involved at that point.
Absolutely. And again, I think this episode of the podcast, really what we were trying to bring home was, you're going to need help. Find someone you can trust that's going to care about your situation.
Correct.
So that when you come to make a decision, you're making it with a lot of confidence and peace of mind.
And knowing that the service you need year in and year out, time and time again, will be provided to you, and always, never, no fees. So this has been The Inside Connection. Click into MediconnectInsurance.com to see a listing of our seminars. You can also call us at 888-818-6334 for any and all Medicare questions.